Okay, so today we're diving deep into the world of medical diagnostics.
Ooh, diagnostics.
Yeah, but specifically,
Okay.
how doctors figure out if someone has scrub typhus.
Ah, scrub typhus. Interesting.
Yeah, you know that bacterial infection you can pick up from the bite of an infected mite.
Yeah, it's a nasty one, and it can mimic so many other illnesses, so
Right, exactly.
it's really important to have those reliable tests.
Yeah, you need to pinpoint exactly what's going on,
For sure.
especially because it can range from, like, a mild fever
Right.
to some really serious complications.
Right.
So figuring out if someone actually has it
Right.
is like the first step to actually treating it properly.
Absolutely, like the first step to getting on the road to recovery.
Yeah, so let's break down how doctors do that.
Okay, so it all starts with the amazing defense system. Our bodies have these antibodies.
Oh, yeah, antibodies. I've heard of those.
Right, so when those scrub typhus bacteria enter the picture, our immune system is like, not today, and starts producing these specialized
But
proteins.
little warriors.
Exactly. They're like tiny little warriors going in to fight the bacteria, and we call them antibodies.
So finding those antibodies is kind of like the clue.
Yeah, it's the smoking gun that tells us scrub typhus is the culprit.
Okay, so it's like we're playing a microscopic game of Clue, and the antibodies are our main suspects.
I like that analogy.
But how do doctors actually detect them?
Well, you can't just see them with the naked eye.
Right, it's not like they can just pull out a magnifying glass or something.
Uh-huh. No, we need some pretty sophisticated tools for this investigation. And that's where the indirect immunofluorescence assay comes in, or IFA.
IFA.
Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful.
It is a bit of a mouthful.
But it's the gold standard for diagnosing scrub typhus.
Oh, wow.
And get this, scientists can actually see these antibodies light up under a microscope.
Oh, wow.
They use these fluorescent dyes that make the antibodies glow.
Really?
Yeah, it's incredible. It allows for super precise detection.
So we can actually see those tiny antibodies?
We can. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, that is mind-blowing. So EVIFA is like our high-tech forensic lab.
Exactly.
Are there any other tests that we use?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's the ELISA test,
Sweet.
which stands for Enzyme-Linked Immunosorbent Assay.
Okay, another mouthful.
Yeah, they love those long names in science.
I know, it's like they're trying to make it
Hard to remember.
more complicated than it needs to be.
Exactly. But anyway, ELISA is kind of like the workhorse of scrub typhus detection.
Okay, how so?
Well, especially in situations where resources are limited.
Okay, so this is a test that can be used in more places.
Exactly. It's really valuable in those settings.
Got it.
And unlike IFA, it doesn't look for the antibodies themselves.
Okay.
It actually focuses on these specific proteins that are shed by the scrub typhus bacteria.
Oh, I see.
Think of them like tiny bacterial fingerprints.
And so IFA's like, we're getting a visual confirmation.
Exactly.
And ELISA's more like, we're analyzing fingerprints left at the scene of the crime.
You got it.
But I'm guessing it's not just about which test you use, right?
No, you're right. Timing is a huge factor.
Yeah, like when you do the test.
Absolutely. Our bodies are clever. They don't produce all antibodies at the same time.
Oh.
The IgM antibodies are kind of like the first responders.
Okay.
They show up about a week after the initial infection,
Okay.
and then the IgG antibodies arrive a bit later.
The backup.
Exactly. They're the reinforcements usually coming in after a couple of weeks.
Oh, I see.
So doctors can use this antibody timeline to not only confirm an infection, but also get a sense of how long someone's been fighting those bacteria.
Wow, that's really smart.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So I've heard of another test,
Okay.
the Weil-Felix test.
Ah, yes, the Weil-Felix test.
Does that work on the same principle?
Well, it was commonly used in the past, but
Oh.
it's not really recommended anymore.
Oh, why is that?
Well, unfortunately, it had a bit of a problem with false positives.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it could sometimes indicate someone had scrub typhus when they actually had a completely different infection.
Oh, so it wasn't accurate enough?
Not quite. It had a tendency to point the finger in the wrong direction.
That makes sense because medical science is always evolving, right?
Absolutely. We're
Okay.
constantly learning and refining our techniques.
It's like trading in your old flip phone for a smartphone.
Uh-huh. I like that.
You might be attached to that old flip phone,
Right.
but the smartphone's going to give you so much more.
Exactly. It's all about progress.
So what about rapid tests?
Oh, you mean like the at-home tests?
Yeah, are we close to having a rapid test for scrub typhus?
That's a great question, and it would be incredibly helpful.
Especially in areas where it's common.
Exactly. It could really make a difference.
So do they exist?
Well, they do exist. They're also known as ICTs.
ICTs.
But they haven't quite reached prime time yet.
Oh, what's holding them back?
More research is needed to make sure they're as accurate as our good old IFA and ELISA.
We want to be super confident.
We don't want any false positives or negatives.
Exactly.
But it's definitely an exciting area to keep an eye on.
Okay, so recap.
Yeah, let's recap.
If a doctor thinks someone might have scrub typhus, they're going to look for IgM antibodies.
Right.
Probably with confirmation from either IFUS or ELISA.
Exactly.
But I have a feeling it's not always that simple.
You're right. It can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially in parts of the world where scrub typhus isn't as common.
Oh, I see.
If you're a doctor in a region where it's rare, you might not even think of it as a possibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. You wouldn't be looking for it if you didn't think it was there.
Right. It's not always top of mind.
Wow, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, it's about awareness.
It makes you realize that even with these advanced tests, getting the right diagnosis can depend on a lot of different factors.
Absolutely. It's not just about the lab results.
Like a doctor's experience, their awareness,
Yeah.
and even just the healthcare system in that region.
Precisely. Diagnosis is rarely black and white. It's more like piecing together a puzzle.
That's a great way to put it, using symptoms, medical history, and of course the right tests.
Right. And all of that within the context of where you are in the world.
This has been so eye-opening.
Glad to hear it.
It's really made me think about how much more there is to diagnosing a disease than just identifying some antibodies.
Definitely. It's a complex process.
And for our listeners who are as fascinated by this as we are,
I hope there are many out there.
definitely go and dive deeper into the world of infectious diseases, diagnostics, and global health.
There's a whole world to explore.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole worth going down.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great.
Likewise.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.